From deep under the city streets comes ultimate sewer terrain. The cheapest, most professional looking, most versatile sewer terrain ever. And we'll show you how to make it today on Dungeon Craft. Welcome to Dungeon Craft. I am Professor Dungeon Master, and this channel is about playing the ultimate game of D&D. Level up your game by subscribing and click the bell icon so you'll be notified when we upload new videos every Thursday. Ultimate Sewer Terrain is the latest in the Ultimate Dungeon Terrain series. If you've never seen it, UDT goes in the center of the gaming table on a lazy Susan and spins so your players can move their miniatures, and you don't have to have tons of terrain cluttering up your game table and blocking your players' lines of sight. Ultimate Sewer Terrain might look a lot more detailed, because it is, but don't be intimidated because it's actually very easy to make. It does require a little bit of a time investment as you have to allow the terrain to dry overnight between several of the steps. But most of the tools, box cutters, craft paint, pens, glue, you probably already have it. And it'll be well worth it when you see your friends' faces and they ask you how you made it. Today I'm going to show you how to make the base, modular walls, and a working portcullis. So enough yapping, let's get cracking. So we're going to make it out of this big sheet of XPS extruded polystyrene insulation foam. You can get this at Home Depot, that's where I got it. To create our circle, I have this piece of version 2.0 UDT. I'm just going to use that as a template, and we're going to cut it out with our utility knife. And you're going to get a circle that looks like this. This is 15 inches in diameter. I don't want to make a larger piece than that because I'm going to be taking away, we're going to be carving out some of that polystyrene in the middle, which will weaken the structure of the entire thing. Not that much. I've practiced this and it's still pretty tough. But if you want to make a really large sewer piece, like we're talking 18, 20, 24 inches, you might want to go with the 1-inch polystyrene, this 1-inch XPS. The most distinctive feature of UST is the effluence channel that runs down the center, and it proved to be my biggest challenge. I had to get both the look and the geometry right. The look I got from studying European sewers like those found in Prague and Kiev. The geometry would prove to be a lot more difficult. So I will admit I am not mathematically inclined, and I do not know enough geometry to know how to find exactly the center of a circle. So what I did is I got some standard size blocks. They're all the same. I make a box in what I perceive to be the center. I'm just going to put a bottle cap in there. So that looks about right to me. X is going to mark the spot. Now we're going to draw out our center. That's going to be our channel. And then using again that center, I'm going to double check this going around to make sure it's equidistant, that all these pie pieces are the same. We're going to create the channel by applying aerosol spray solvents and melting the styrofoam. So we protect the areas we don't want to melt with painter's tape. I'm now going to spray the pink area with Citadel's Standard Mechanicus Gray, and it's going to cause the foam to melt. And it's not the acrylic, it's the propellant which is going to cause it to melt. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start by giving it a light even coat. And it'll immediately begin dissolving the foam. And we'll just let it do its work for about 10 minutes or so. And now a word from our sponsor, Pepsid AC, which in addition to relieving acid indigestion, makes a great sanding block. So we're going to wrap it in 100 grit sandpaper, like this. And this way, when we sand it, it'll be a consistent size. Some of the paint can be stubborn, and the key is not to press too hard because you will gouge out the foam. If you want to let friction do the work. Alright, so I gridded out the entire surface and I carved some stone pattern into here. You might ask, why don't I use one of those green stuff rollers?
And the answer is because the grooves will not be deep enough. Those are far better if you have a very thin piece of foam board. What I'm going to use for this is this Bic Velocity 1.6 size gel roller, also called the Atlantis pen. I'll include a link to it below. This is my go-to pen. This is what I use for carving polystyrene. Now, the grid I made is composed of 1-inch squares, but I don't get to give you the impression that I play with a gridded game. I don't. I just find it convenient to take that space and to break it up into smaller flagstone bits. The bricks are 1 centimeter apart. Also, I've counted 3 squares this way and 3 squares that way, over here, and we're going to melt that with a styrofoam cutting tool. You can also do it with an X-Acto, and I've just carved that out because we're going to be putting a grating there. So that's my standard go-to pattern. The key is to make sure the mortar lines do not line up. Now, a common objection I get is people saying, well, it takes a long time, I don't have that much time to do it. It's really not going to take that much time. I'm going to do this section and this section of the effluence channel. I'm going to hit the timer, and we'll see exactly how long it takes me. Go. Okay, that's just about 24 minutes for this section, and there's going to be 2 more. That means that this entire piece will take about 1 hour and 15 minutes to do. That's really not a lot of time. You could just put on a ball game or binge watch some of your favorite videos like Dungeon Craft, and that time will pass pretty quickly. Also, I mistakenly melted this block too, so I had to replace it with some green stuff. So I also did some repair work in that 24 minutes. And also, they wrap around. See, I've got that wraparound blocking. Time for the aluminum foil stamp to give it some texture. Time for some Mod Podge mixed with black paint, and we're going to coat the whole thing. After it's dry, we're going to give it a coat of craftsmart tan, and after a couple hours, it looks like this. For some variation, we're going to use 2 colors, craftsmart golden brown and gray. Staggering them out so we don't put the same colors next to each other. And we're going to alternate with some gray. Next, we're going to give it a dry brushing with craftsmart suede. We're going to make sure that we get all the paint off this. I'm going to drag it quickly across the surface and in both directions. And what'll happen is it'll blend all these colors together. And finally, we're going to dry brush it with white. I'm not cleaning the brush. Super light, not pressing down at all, so it only comes off on absolutely the highest areas. And I'm going to be doing it a little more in this channel, so the channel is just a little bit brighter, just because it's going to be buried under grimy looking water, and I want us to still be able to see these blocks. Time for a wash. Both my wash formula and the previous technique of varying the stone pattern are courtesy of Black Magic Craft. There's a link below. That is a great channel. I use a splash of Citadel Nuln oil as a color guide and create my wash by mixing 1 part black craft paint with 8 to 10 parts water. If you do use Citadel right out of the bottle, expect to use about 1/3 of the bottle, which honestly is not that bad. And if I'd known that in the first place, I probably wouldn't have tried to make my own because I like the consistent results of Citadel. We use the softer bristle brush because you can really use it to get into those mortar lines, which is where we want it. Next day, it's time for our next wash, which is going to be Citadel's Agrax Earthshade. And I just pour it on. So yesterday, I thought at the end of the day, after it had dried, that it looked a little too brown still, so I washed it again with a combination of black and brown. I did it one more time, and I'm satisfied with the look. And it just goes to show you, when you're dealing with washes, you have to play around with it and let those washes dry. And if you think it looks off, you just do it again. All right, now I'm going to take a little bit of the original tan with this dry brush, And I'm going to go into the effluence channel and just do that again. I'm going to lighten it up just a little bit. I go in both directions here. So I want it to be a little bit lighter. Now it's time to hit it with Minwax Clear Satin Polyurethane. This is a spray polyurethane, and we're gonna seal it. But that's not the final step. Next we have to paint the effluence channel in the center, and we're going to do that by painting it with PVA glue. This is white glue that I got from the dollar store. I'm gonna add a little bit of water to it, and I'm going to paint just the middle. And the reason I'm doing that is because I'm going to be adding a water texture to it. This is still very porous, and the water texture will sink right into the foam, and I don't want that to happen. The right thickness is where it kind of runs off the brush like that. That's about right. And this is going to be important. As soon as we're done, we're going to clean this brush with warm soap and water. We could use dish soap. This is one of my favorite brushes. It's a pretty new one. The bristles are very soft, which is good for getting in small cracks. If you clean the brush properly, yikes, I almost forgot a very critical step, which is washing. We're going to do another wash. We have to do this color. It's called Biel-tan green. It's a Citadel color. And paint the sides like that. What we should have done is laid this down and then put the glue down. It's the next day and it's looking really good. And now we're going to do some highlighting with Warpstone Glow. We're going to go, I have a whole bunch of greens here. We're going to move to probably Moot green. I think I'm going to try out Moot green. This is later and it is completely dry. It looks wet, but it's totally dry. And I think it's awesome. It looks exactly the way I want it to look. Now for the water texture. So we're going to take a bowl and we're going to take our secret ingredients, Vallejo acrylic water texture.
This was by far the most challenging part of this project, deciding how I was going to make the water. I don't work with resin, and I thought for a package of resin, I was probably going to end up with too much resin for this sort of project. And I'm a cheap guy. I tried to make it out of PVA glue and silicone and all different ways to try to figure out how to make it, for say $2. But in the end, Vallejo water texture was just the easiest one to work with, and it got me the best results. It's $15 on Amazon Prime. You're only going to use about half the bottle, which means you'll have half the bottle left over for another project. So when you look at it that way, it's not that expensive. Aside from the price, the only drawback is it took a long time for it to dry. It takes about 24 hours, and you have to apply it in thin coats. But it's really not that big a deal. And it was so easy to work with, I'd be thrilled to work with it again.
We don't want to shake the bottle at all because we don't want bubbles. We're going to add to that Athonian Camoshade a little bit. And we're going to stir it up. I've taped off the end with painter's tape so it's not going to run off. And here's our dirty looking. It looks very brackish. We're going to start by pouring it in the center. They're all connecting, and that's a very thin coat in each direction, and that's what we want. We can always do it again. Some of this may sink into the surface. We're going to set it aside to dry overnight, and we'll do another coating of it tomorrow. So this is more than 24 hours later, and you can see it's a little trickle. And over here, it's just kind of glossy. It's really soaked into the styrofoam, but that's okay because we're going to build layers on top of it, right? That's formed now a shell, and future layers won't soak through that. More water texture, more Athonian Camoshade. I think I stirred it too much. I did it too fast, right? I got bubbles in there. We shouldn't have. Strive not to have the bubbles, although the bubbles aren't terrible, because when you look at it, it's kind of cool. All right, so here we go. We're gonna just pour a little bit of this. So you have to be patient. It might take 3 or 4 nights for you to do it, but the end look will be great. That's the leftover from yesterday. You can see it's still a little greenish. I'm gonna make it a little more green. You might wonder why I'm doing it in this small piece of Tupperware. It's easier to see when it's spread out like this if I've got a good color. Now you could leave those kind of streaks in, and that's kind of a cool look. We could do that a little bit, right, instead of mixing it totally. Here we go. You want to see which direction the liquid runs too, because you can see it's building up heavy here, which is okay because I needed it to be a little more heavy there. But if you don't want it there, you just put a pencil under it and lift it up like that. So let's let this dry till this evening, or tomorrow morning we'll see what we've got.
Now, while that's waiting to dry, I just want to take a moment to thank all my patrons out there on Patreon who made this video possible. Ultimate Sewer Terrain took a lot of work. Here's a practice sample. Here's another one as I'm trying to figure out how to make water. Here's one made of silicone. That was a mess. Here's the almost but not quite right version. I mean, I still think it's pretty good and I might give it away, but it wasn't all I'd hoped for. But it was a sizable investment to run through all those experiments. Patrons at different levels get access to my DM's notebook, PDFs of my character sheets, access to the monthly chat, and behind the scenes videos. So if you're interested, there are links below. Also below is a link to our Dungeon Craft Facebook group where our members show off pictures of their ultimate dungeon terrain, and to be honest, it looks a lot better than mine. So check that out. Now on with the show. I'll show you how to make some walls. I deliberately made the walls short so they wouldn't block the action, and I also made them modular so that they'd be really versatile and quick and easy to clean up. For this set, I made 4 corner pieces, 4 3-inch walls, 4 2-inch walls, 2 arched gratings, and 2 portcullises.
So this wall is a half an inch thick, and I'm going to draw that. That's going to be our corner piece now. So we're going to cut that out. Before we do that, we're going to do the walls, and I'm going to bevel this wall slightly. It's going to kind of flare out like that because a sewer wall would be like curving upwards around the sewer like that. I'm just going to make a little curve to it. And for that, I'm going to use my tiny carving knife. I'm just going to cut in like that. So now it's like a little concave like that. I like that better. Now we're going to take out this part. Next we're going to draw the bricks on. I have enough for about 4 rows. Very simple how to draw the pattern here. We just go across and connect these. I also made this 2-inch wall. I like it better in 2-inch segments than 1. And I cut it out of this inch thick piece of XPS. And the reason I like the inch thick, even though it's only a half an inch thick at the top, is because again we want to bevel it. We want to make it a little concave. We want it to flare out like in a circular, like imagine it's going up around and making a pipe. So to do that, so it's wider at the base than it is at top. I'm also making this. This is going to be a door. It is made out of 1-inch thick polystyrene again. It's based on this archway that I did. It is 1 3/4 inches high, and I used a nickel to trace out what's going to be a circular doorway. I'm going to use this small utility knife and really press down. Really get a deep cut. I want it to go right through to the other side like that, coming through. Yeah, pop that out. There we go. And then we have a hole. And then we can, it's a little rough on the inside. There's a couple of ways we can go about that. One way is to just to cut around that. Just cut a little of that off. Another way is to stick sandpaper right through the hole. You're going to sand it like that. And that'll smooth all that out. It took me a few practice versions before I got this, which is, you can see it's got that curve there, and it's wider at the base. And to add an extra little feature, we'll be using this plastic canvas. And we're going to use it to make a grating. And we're going to have this drop down like that, and you'll be able to pull it up and down. So it'll be a portcullis as well.
You just cut it in half long ways, and then you use your small utility knife to carve out a little track there on both sides. You measure the mesh, make sure it fits in there like that, and we're going to attach it with the green stuff where it's kind of naturally sinks into there. I carved out a little bit with my gel pen so the gate will settle flush into there. And we can use this green stuff to cover up sort of those stray cuts on the front and on the sides as well. It should stick, but even if it doesn't, we're going to cover this with Mod Podge, and it's going to end up looking like one piece. You won't even notice that seam there. Here's a nice little embellishment. I traced out this round part with a bottle cap. It's 1 inch, and I shaved off a little bit of the sides of the wall so it sticks out a little bit. And then I added this grating. I'm going to take my gel roller pen, and I just draw a line, then I go back in and I gouge it out. Fit it in like this. And we'll make sure it's flush, and then we'll glue it in there, which is some white glue or some Mod Podge. And that'll add some nice detail to your ultimate sewer terrain. So we're going to add some more embellishments to these little pieces, these 2-inch pieces, with this straw. We're just going to put a hole here, about in the middle. All right, so we put the straw in like that. We cut it like that. And we're just going to add some glue. Fill the hole with glue. When it dries, a pipe coming out of there, and you want to make sure that it's not coming out too much, right, because then it'll just, chance of it breaking off later. I might even shorten that just a little bit. And we're going to do that with a couple of these. Just put a pipe sticking out of the middle. Finishing touches and final tips. First, you'll notice I always put the Ultimate Dungeon Terrain on wax paper, because this liquid texture and paint will not stick to wax paper, neither will glue. So if, when I have the tape on the sides and it leaks through, it's just going to form a puddle down there and it'll be easy to clean up. Regarding these edges, where the tape was, there's a little excess material, but you could just trim it off with an X-Acto knife and it'll come off no problem. The gratings were made with this granny grid, as the tabletop engineer calls it. I just cut it to fit and put it in place with a little green stuff. I painted it dark silver and washed it Agrax Earthshade so it would look a little grimy and rusty. Speaking of rust, you can get a rusty look by dry brushing with a little, I think it's called Jokaero orange or Jokaero orange, the Citadel color. I'm going to also hit the bottom bricks of these pieces with some Athonian Camoshade, right, so it looks like they've got like lichen or mold growing on them. I'll put it down coming from that pipe there. Again, I'll be doing that to each of them. And after several sessions over the course of the week, our ultimate sewer terrain is ready for the table. Endlessly versatile, you can create corridors, small rooms, or just one massive room like you see here. I'm thrilled with the way it came out, and I hope you have a lot of fun making your own. Let me know how it goes in the comments below. Woo! That was an epic runtime there. But if you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up, like, share it. You can check out more Dungeon Craft videos over here. I show you how to make terrain and give you advice on how to run your games. Until the next time, this is Professor Dungeon Master. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you next Thursday. And until then, may all your rolls be 20s.